And welcome in, Navigator Nation. It is time again for COPD Navigator House Call. My name is Mike Hess. For those of you who are maybe new around here, I am a respiratory therapist slash COPD advocate slash the COPD dude, a nickname I picked up a couple of summers ago. Back when we can do things like go to the water park and things like that. Got it on the old lazy river down in San Antonio. I am, for better or for worse, unfortunately, in my opinion, alone in the studio today, but we do have a special treat for you if I can pull it off. I know we're a little bit early getting going here, but I do have some trivia questions lined up for you. A couple weeks ago, we did Trivia Tuesday and had a couple of questions. We've got this app here called Kahoot. That my kids all really enjoy learning from in school. It's a kind of a fun app for just kind of learning various trivia things. And that's what we're going to be using it for here today. We've got 8 questions lined up for fun and enjoyment. We've got, unfortunately, no prizes here yet, but we do have some fun stuff in store coming up. Also, wanted to share with folks who, if you were joining us yesterday, my wife Kelly and I kicked off our upcoming channel called The Best Nest, where we are aiming to help people live their best lives, kind of spread their wings and fly. Basically, we're going with that kind of metaphor. We have, there's a book called The Best Nest. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. It has a lot of meaning for Kelly. And it has all the way going back to Kelly's childhood. It's one of those, not a Dr. Seuss book, but in the Cat in the Hat kind of series, that publication company. So that has kind of become the name for our house, more or less. And we also want to work with people, like I said, to kind of go from fight to flight. So that's going to be the name of our trademark show, or our launch show. So look for that coming Sunday. Should have it up on YouTube. We've got our Best Nest channel lined up and might even be able to get some podcast action going too. So keep an eye out for the Best Nest wherever you are at. Also, Thursday, we're going to be doing another edition of our COPD Navigator Ready Room. I just completed the link a little bit earlier, and we're going to get the invites out there posted later this afternoon as I work through this stuff, and then the Right to Breathe webinar on the side. I'll be adding our link to our Zoom web conference, which is coming up on Thursday. By the way, if you are looking at getting some of your trivia on, you certainly do not have to, but this is a kind of a fun way to join in. All you have to do is either get an app on your phone, or just if you're on a computer, go to kahoot.it, Kahoot it, and type in that number and type in a name, and we'll be able to keep some score and have some fun here. So, looking like kind of a quiet crowd so far, probably due to going on a little bit early, but we'll make do with that. Let's see, do we have anybody playing around yet? Let's take a look here. Let's see. So we've got a couple of people watching. So let's go ahead. Oh, no. Oh, okay. There we go. Now we're back. Okay, let's go ahead and see if I can get things started here. I will caution everybody at first. I am not super familiar with the Kahoot app, especially trying to figure out how to get it to live stream and all that stuff at the same time. So we're going to... I got my admin accounts here so that we can at least get the scores up on the screen, or the questions up on the screen, and we're going to see how it goes. So, are we ready? Yes, I believe we are ready. Oh, shoot, and now it has gone away. The The real question is, oh no, it's still there. It was there. Where have you gone? I don't know why it went away. Okay, now it's back. All right, so this first one was kind of a gimme, obviously. Well, I shouldn't say kind of a gimme because inhaler technique is one of those things that we talk about a lot, but it's going to be a gimme because everybody gets this one right because the computer was goofy. So you should breathe in fast and hard when you use a dry powder inhaler. Obviously, that is true. Obviously, to me anyway. That's why we need to make sure that when we are doing our inhaler education, we want to make sure that we are evaluating your inspiratory flow and all that fun stuff as we're trying to find the right inhaler plan for you. While we're going through some of these questions here, please be sure to go ahead and drop in a couple, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, saying hello to Joe and Brian checking in, getting their trivia on with us here as we get ready for question number 2, hopefully. I'm not going to touch anything so that hopefully the computer stays happy with me. Question number 2. This one, hopefully kind of a gimme, but we will see. Which of these is a program of education and exercise to raise awareness about your lungs? Is it cardiac rehabilitation? Is it pulmonary rehabilitation? Is it silver sneakers? Or is it the action plan? All of these are actual things out in the world that have various roles and do various things. But which one is the program of education and exercise designed to increase awareness about your lungs? What are we thinking here? Are we thinking, now again, if you don't want to, if you're not playing it on the Kahoot app, go ahead and you can drop an answer in the comments somewhere. You can let us know what you think. We're looking at cardiac rehab. That's a possibility. Looking at pulmonary rehabilitation, certainly has a word in common with option number 1. Do we want to do silver sneakers? Maybe we want to get some exercise going. Or do we need to take action? Do we want to have some action? Do we want to move around with action? Do we want to have a plan? What's our thinking there, everybody? We got about 12 seconds left on the clock. 12 seconds to go. Program of education and exercise designed to increase awareness about your lungs is pulmonary rehab, of course. Pulmonary rehabilitation, Brian gets it. Pulmonary rehabilitation, of course, wildly, criminally underutilized, even in the best of times. But of course, right now, Kahoot is very slow. All right, fair enough. Well, at least we're getting, this is, if nothing else, this is kind of a fun way to at least let you see the questions, even if we're not working out the bugs to go on from question to question and all that stuff. It is designed, Joe, just for your own knowledge. I gave it, and maybe we'll adjust this for the next Taco Tuesday, but I did give it about 90 seconds on some of these just so that everybody has time to read through and click and go from screen to screen and all that stuff. But hopefully we can design some remote pulmonary rehabilitation programs so that we can increase access even when we're on the other side of this pandemic. So that was, hey, Joe is on the board. Welcome in, Joe. All right. So next up, we've got question number 3. When was the metered dose inhaler invented? Now, this is truly a definition of trivia right here. But when do you suppose the metered dose inhaler was invented? Was it way back in 1879? Was it post-World War II, 1949? Was it just a little bit later in 1956? Or was it at the dawn of the 80s, 1981, 1879, 1949, 1956, 1981? You got a minute to think about that here. When was that metered dose inhaler invented? Of course, we all know, and I'm sure absolutely love, our old friend, the metered dose inhaler. Seems like a fairly simple design, but of course we also have to bear in mind when materials were invented, when we started looking at things like COPD and respiratory stuff. What are we looking at? Simple thing, got the pressurized container and our boot adapter so that we can puff away. Good technique. John playing some tricks here with or without dose counter. Without, technically, without is this one is without, because it has only been in recent years that they have been with the dose counter. So when was that invented? Last call for answers. Yes, 1956. We are 40, 50, 64 years into the metered dose inhaler, and we still do a terrible job at teaching people how to use the thing. Brian, not quite 1981. It was, in fact, 1956. The story of the invention of, and this is true, this comes from a journal, peer-reviewed journal. The story of the invention of the metered dose inhaler is that this girl, I think she was preteen, maybe teenager, asked her dad, Dad, you know, I have asthma. She had asthma. She didn't ask him that, I guess, but she had asthma. Why? I have my perfumes and aerolizers and all that stuff. This nebulizer that I use for my asthma medications. It's kind of bulky. Why can't it come in something like hairspray? We had aerosol hairspray at the time. Why can't I get my asthma medication like I get my hairspray? Well, it turns out that girl's dad was the president of, I believe it was called Riker Pharmaceuticals, the forerunner to 3M. And he was a president / inventor and set his team to work. And within a year, they had working prototypes of 2 beta agonist bronchodilators delivered via metered dose inhalers. So now you know the rest of the story, as they say. Joe got it wrong online. John, the same age as the metered dose inhaler. So we've still got just John just Joe, John, Joe. Just Joe playing online, but we got our next question. We're almost halfway there now. Which famous classic rock frontman recently acknowledged having COPD? Now this one, you have an advantage if you are a regular viewer of House Call. And if you miss a little House Call, you miss a lot, let me tell you. But you'll have an edge if you are a frequent viewer, because this gentleman, this was recently in the news, and we were talking about it within the last week or so. Are we looking at Steven Tyler? Are we thinking about slow hand, Eric Clapton, guitarist / frontman? Are we looking at David St. Hubbins or Ian Anderson? Brian says it's Ian Anderson. We've got about 47 seconds left for you to decide. What are you feeling? Steven Tyler, Eric Clapton, David St. Hubbins, and Ian Anderson. Big fan of Clapton myself. I'm a big fan of all of them. John says, since I am late, not sure how to get points, but I do know the answer. Well, yeah, it's like the whose line is it anyway? The rules are made up and the points don't matter. This is a fun way to kind of get everybody, at least the visible answers out there. So, but I was digressing. Eric Clapton, big fan of his. My wife has turned me into a big blues fan, and we've actually seen a couple of times. We've seen Derek Trucks and his wife Susan Tedeschi, the Tedeschi Trucks Band, perform together, and Derek Trucks played guitar a lot with Eric Clapton. So what do we have here as the clock hits 0? It is, in fact, Ian Anderson from the, what I look at as legendary British rock band Jethro Tull. Steven Tyler, amazing that he has the lung capacity that he does have and that he hasn't blown out his throat and vocal cords and all that stuff, hitting those high notes. Eric Clapton, just talked about him. David St. Hubbins, made up. He is the lead singer of the fictional rock band Spinal Tap. Back again from the 80s, earlier on there. One of those things that I have technically not seen the whole movie all the way through, but I've seen a lot of it, and enough to know that is I just wanted to throw that out there as kind of a landmine answer, you want our hidden answer there. So that's who David St. Hubbins is, John Linnell, lead singer of Spinal Tap. I guess that's a gotcha right there. So Joe picking up some points on that one. Way to go, Joe. Next up, we've got question 5. This is getting into some of the anatomy, which may be a little bit obscure for a lot of folks, but I personally believe it's important to know how the anatomy works so that when we're discussing things clinically, that you know what's going on too. So the air sacs where oxygen enters the blood and carbon dioxide leaves are called alveoli, or maybe they're called bronchioles, maybe they're called the pleural spaces, or perhaps they are the goblet cells. The little cells, does oxygen go in, carbon dioxide come out in the goblet cells, or the spaces, or the bronchioles, or the alveoli? Now, again, this is probably one where if you hang around me to any degree, you might know this one a little bit easier, or maybe it's a little bit easier than, I hope it's easy. I hope everybody has this information. I want everybody to have this information. Unfortunately, I know that, my clinical friends and I don't always do a great job of getting that information out there. So 23 seconds to go. Brian has checked in with alveoli. Could be alveoli, could be bronchioles, could be pleural spaces, could be goblet cells. Tried to go A, B, C, D, but couldn't think of a good C or a good D. The Hubbins cells, John says, those are in the spine, hence spinal tap. Those are actually part of your central nervous system. Time is up, and no. Oh no, I forgot to change the correct answer. Oh, when I was writing the thing, I was using our last Taco Tuesday as the template for it, and I forgot to change the right answer. Wow. Okay, so that is a learning experience. The more you know, knowing is half the battle. The actual correct answer, pay no attention to what is on your screen. Do as I say, not as I do. The actual answer is, as Brian pointed out, the alveoli. These are all real things, unlike the illustrious Mr. St. Hubbins. The alveoli are the little air sacs. The bronchioles are the ends of the tubes that get down there. You start at the trachea, you go into the bronchi, and then you get out into the little tiny bronchioles. The pleural spaces, actually pleural space is the spot of your chest that's between your lungs and the chest wall. And the goblet cells are the cells that create mucus. So they tend to overreact in chronic bronchitis. So that one's on me. Joe. You may have answered correctly, but so I apologize for that. Learning experience. I'll have to pay attention to that a little bit more. And I see one of my teacher friends is watching now. Beth, hopefully you're having a good time. You ever used Kahoot in this thing? So this is an important question, and this is one that we really need to cover more when we're talking about portable oxygen. Hopefully not giving away too much there, but on a portable oxygen concentrator, pulse dose setting of 3 is equal to 3 liters per minute constant flow. True or false? This one's easy, so I just gave it a little bit of 30 seconds here. So is the setting of 3 on a pulse dose, does that mean 3 liters per minute? Is it the same, or is it a little bit different? Is this true or false? It is indeed false, as Brian has pointed out. Yes, this is false. Something that we wildly, almost as bad as pulmonary rehab, but forget to tell people. When you have a pulse dose concentrator, you actually get a bolus, a little blob of oxygen that comes out. And it's a set volume. It depends on the individual device, but it's a set volume. It's a set amount of oxygen that comes out. And that doesn't necessarily correlate to continuous flow, because when you're breathing in, how much you breathe in depends on a lot of factors, like how fast you're breathing, your lung capacity, all these things work hand in hand. Joe, I wish it was too. I wish it was a lot easier for folks to understand that. And I wish we could have functional, portable, lightweight concentrators that could put out 3, 4, 5 liters per minute. But at the end of the day, it is not equivalent, and we need to remind people of that, because it's really easy for folks to say, well, I'm on 3 liters at home, so I must be on a setting of 3 with my portable concentrator, or, the pulse dose concentrator, the app Online Kahoot is on previous answer, getting off Kahoot. So I'm trying to watch the screen here. I don't know where everything's at. Probably might depend on signal and all that stuff. I don't know where everything is at. So I'm also still slowing down here. So anyway, maybe this works. Maybe it doesn't. Hard to say. Let me pull it. Well, so this next question here. Seems to be doing okay. But what is the average rate of decline per year in a person's FEV1 measurement? This is one of those spirometry numbers that we look at. And of course, we know in COPD, usually it goes downhill, but does that happen in the average person too? This is the average rate of decline in a person's FEV1 measurement. Do you usually lose 10 to 20 milliliters per year, 20 to 30 milliliters a year, 40 to 50 milliliters a year, or does the FEV1 not usually drop over time? Answers will be here. All right. Well, welcome in, Joe. So what are we looking at? Do we have a rate of decline in FEV1? Does a healthy person? I mean, we all probably have a pretty good idea that folks with COPD have some kind of decline. That's kind of has historically been the hallmark of this condition, is that you have this progressively declining lung. Joe's guess, 10 to 20 milliliters a year. Not a bad guess. It's 1 of 4, 25% chance of getting it right. Agree, disagree with Joe? John says 10 to 20. Brian says 20 to 30. So we've got some agreement, some disagreement. We got about 10 seconds to go before we find out what the real answer is. 3, 2, 1. Brian's got it at 20 to 30 liters per minute, depending on a couple of factors. Any spirometry measurement is going to be based on your height and your age and your gender, your biological gender, to a certain degree, your ethnicity. So we have a lot of factors that go into it. Suppose it would need to be quantified as to how the patient took protective action. So that's true. But it's also important to remember that even in healthy lungs, some decline is almost inevitable. So again, this is the average rate of decline. And so, John's got a good point, need to be quantified. If you're taking protective action, if you're exercising, if you're in really good shape, if you are doing a lot of things that you should be doing, you may be able to slow this down a little bit. But on average, I believe the number was in females, it's about 23 milliliters a year, and in males, it's about 30 milliliters a year. Even under optimal circumstances, we're going to see some decline over time. In COPD, that does tend to be magnified a bit, obviously, but even in healthy lungs, we see that decline. That's why we have this kind of conundrum. I have a lot of people who come to see me where they tell me, well, I've been slowing down the last couple of years. I know the doc wants to tell me that it's COPD, but I can't be because I quit smoking 20 years ago, and it can't be that. not realizing, and I wish if I was in my office, I would have my little Fletcher pedo curve thing. I wonder if I can pull that up real quick before we go on to the last couple of questions here. We have this thing called the Fletcher pedo curve. That is to a certain extent, a little bit out of date here, but we can look at this and we can see that. Can I get that full screen somehow? Yeah, here we go. There we go. So we've got this Fletcher pedo curve thing that tells us that even in healthy lungs, you're going to lose some of that over time. If you smoke, it tends to go down a lot faster. And if you quit, it goes back to that age-related decline, that year-over-year stuff. So this is why I tell people it's never too early, but it's also never too late. You're going to see some benefit from quitting smoking and taking care of your lungs, pulmonary rehab, doing your meter dose inhalers, your dry powder inhalers, all these things. You're going to see some benefit and reduction of that decline even later in life, because especially if you quit smoking, you're going to stave off those effects for a while. So, but yeah, the correct answer here, 20 to 30 milliliters per year, depending on other factors and assuming that this is an average. All right, so we are at the last question here. Which of the following are used to close off parts of the lung, helping healthier areas work better? And forgot to change the picture on this one, which is weird. So Kahoot can be a little bit picky sometimes, because I know I found a picture for that one. Do we use glue? Do we just glue off parts of the lung? Do we use metal coils to curl up parts of the lung? Do we use tiny little valves to close off parts of the lung, or do we use all of the above? Which of these might you be familiar with? We've talked about a couple of different techniques to do what we call bronchoscopic lung volume reduction and other lung volume reduction. Brian checks in with tiny valves. Could be those. We have a couple of different techniques out there, but is it all of the above? Is it all of the above? Brian has now changed to all of the above. We've got 30 seconds to decide if you agree or disagree. Joe also agrees, all of the above. John, you still with us, or did you hop over to Right to Breathe? We got all the above here. We got 2 votes for all the above. What do we want to say, folks? 20 seconds to go, 18 seconds to go. Do my best, Dick Clark here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All of the above. Hey. Yes. As a matter of fact, which of the following do you use to close off parts of the lung to help the healthier lungs work better? We do, in fact, use all of the above. The coils and the valves are probably the most well-known. I think the valves have technically been on the market the longest, or at least one brand of the valves. And then we've also got coils. The valves work by allowing the unhealthy parts of the lung to collapse and not re-expand, and then the healthier part glue doesn't necessarily work so well. We're getting to that. I'll get to that. Tiny valves have worked pretty well to allow some of the lung to collapse and the healthier lung to expand better and work better. Similar idea with the coils. We can actually make some of the diseased part of the lung curl up and be small, so that again the healthier parts of the lung could work a little bit better. The glue has had some pros and cons to it. The valves and the coils certainly have some better evidence to support them right now. I wouldn't necessarily count out the glue. It's kind of an interesting idea, depending on the application and some of the other techniques there. Wouldn't necessarily count that out yet, but it is not really going very well. Is used on occasion, but fair point. So that's our Kahoot for the day. That's Trivia Tuesday for Tuesday, May 26th, 2020. Learned a little bit more about how to use Kahoot properly this time. So hope we at least had some fun doing that. I enjoyed it. Kind of makes me think back to there used to be a trivia game um, that people would play at like regular parts of the day. I'm blanking on the name right now. It's one of those things that was super hot for about a month and then kind of fell apart. You could win a few bucks here and there. If you were the grand prize winner, you might get like $20 or something like that, supported by, I believe, ad revenue and stuff like that. Had a announcer, MC kind of person like that. So that was kind of fun. As I've mentioned a time or two, I always wanted to be a weatherman, so I always like to bring out the green screen or bring out my MC voice, survey says, that kind of thing. So that's always fun. We will be wrapping things up just a touch early today. We started a little bit early. We're going to wrap things up a little bit early as well. So make sure that you're getting those questions in. If you have some questions for us, whether they are related to any of the topics we discussed on Trivia Tuesday, sometimes known as Taco Tuesday. We had Trivia Tuesday stuff. If you've got COPD questions, if you've got questions about your meter dose inhaler, if you've got all kinds of other stuff, we are happy to oblige with that. Let's see. I did see one other comment there. Wanted to get that. Oh, Ray Erickson checking in. Ray runs the COPD Good Vibes Info News Tips and Support Group. Was able to share the video of this here today with that group. Hopefully, it doesn't look like he minds too much. So hopefully, we'll make that a regular occasion. So. The reason we're stopping a little bit earlier today, our good friends over at Right to Breathe, Joe Morrison, Michelle Da Silva, and their team are doing a webinar about the use of technology in COPD management, which if you're watching us on YouTube or on Facebook, you may have some affinity for technology. And there are a lot of really good ways to use technology in the management of COPD. We've got, I just saw, as a matter of fact, I don't know when it was published, but I did see, I don't have my demo Symbicort here, but the Propeller Company, which makes little devices that plug onto the various types of inhalers, meter dose and dry powder alike, just got approval for the Symbicort inhaler, which, as many of you may know, is one of those dose counters or meter dose inhalers with the dose counter. Has a little bit of a flappy do on there where the dose counter is, and they had to design it in a certain way so that it didn't interfere with the counting. Took them a little bit of time to engineer that, but they just got approval for that device that can help people remember to take their inhalers. Prompt you to take it if you've forgotten it, help you find it if you lost it. Lots of different applications for the Propeller device. I am not compensated for them. They did provide some free ones a few years back for folks in the Navigator group as kind of a demo trial kind of deal, but otherwise not affiliated with them. I want to say hello real quick to Lynn and Andy checking in. Andy checking in, I know, from across the pond. Hope you're doing okay. Andy, I know, I like to highlight some odd things from time to time. Andy does some really beautiful woodwork. I'm fortunate enough to be a friend of his on Facebook, and he posts some of his designs from time to time. Does some really nice work. If you've got some things you want to highlight, you want to share, make sure you let me know, and I would love to highlight the hobbies and tips and tricks. I know John just shared the other day he's done some promotional work in different venues, and he got up close and personal with some of the NBA live television crew, Charles Barkley and a couple other folks out there. Andy does the great woodwork. We've got Brian, who was with us on our last COPD Navigator Ready Room and has also become a patron of ours on patreon.com. You can support the work that we do. So many thanks to Brian for that. But he was sharing his experience with some of the technology that's used in COPD management, a lot of the devices to help supplement inhalation and all that stuff. Hopefully he'll join us again this Thursday. We're having, as I mentioned, I am doing the Right to Breathe in about 20 minutes here. Yes, going to go check that out. What was I saying? This Thursday in the Ready Room, we're going to be talking about some of the non-pharmacological things that we can do, like the vest and the Life 2000 that Brian has talked about before. We're going to talk about oscillatory PEP. We're going to talk about these kind of things that can help with cough and things like that. We're going to be talking about a variety of things outside. Last week we were mostly talking about meds. This time we're going to talk about non-meds. Looking forward, we'll talk about technology. We'll talk about exercises. We're going to talk about harmonicas. The next thing up next week, I want to try our first online harmonicas for health and see if we can get that going, see what the difficulties might be before we do that with a broad audience. And we're always looking for new ideas, whether it's stuff specifically for COPD, whether it's stuff you need to manage COPD plus all the other stuff that you've got going on. If you've got diabetes, if you've got high blood pressure, if you've got arthritis, if you've got gout, if you've got any kind of chronic condition, that's where the whole fight to flight thing is going to come in, and the work that my wife and I are doing together, trying to enhance a lot of these things. So let me know in the comments. Let me know via email, via Twitter, via however you want to get a hold of me. Let me know what you want to share with the community, whether it's a hobby, a habit, a thing that you do to improve your life, some good news that you have, or if it's stuff that you need from us on the clinical side, the advisory side. Let me know what it is. Anytime. My door is always open, especially online. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap things up here. It was fun to play trivia with folks. I see the signal's a little bit choppy right now. It looks like on this end. I don't know how it is on your end. Hopefully it wasn't too bad, but that might have accounted for some of the slowness here and there. But hope everybody's having a great day. We will be back tomorrow at our usual time for our usual harmonica stuff. So if you want to get some requests in, some challenge stuff, it's got to be something that I kind of know, because I can read the tabs okay, but I got to make sure I get the rhythm and all that stuff going on. And we'll get that played for you. We'll be here the rest of this week at 4 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We'll be in the Ready Room at 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we will be with our first recorded episode of Fight to Flight with Kelly and Mike this weekend, this Sunday, on YouTube. So with that said, we're going to hand this over and lead in, let everybody get some time to get on to the other